Here we have the new Seamaster Professional 300 with significant updates and changes. This is a very exciting release for me. So Omega has brought back the black wave dial. They've brought back the black aluminum bezel insert, but this still has some of the current generation design aspects like flared skeleton hands, traditional applied markers, and it does not have the sword hands. This does not have the geometrically shaped printed loom markers, so it's not necessarily a reissue of the Peter Blake from decades past, but this does have some nostalgia to it with some of those elements like the aluminum and that old school black wave dial, and so I'm very excited about this watch. Omega has managed to take something and keep it exciting by also toning it down a little bit. This is less shiny. This is less contemporary feeling. This is more timeless feeling, in my opinion, compared to the current Black Generation Seamaster. So there is some charm here. There is some nostalgia at play, and it's an extremely versatile watch that would look amazing on any strap. So that said, I want to thank Exquisite Timepieces for lending in this brand new release for a review. Exquisite is a family-owned authorized dealer for Omega in Florida. They also carry 60 other luxury brands. So if you're shopping Omega, definitely check out Exquisite. I've bought from them personally multiple times over the years and have linked their store below. Now, why do I think this is such a great release on the part of Omega? Yes, I mentioned the timeless feeling to it, that old school 90s charm to the watch, but Omega has addressed two common criticisms that us watch collectors commonly have with the Seamaster Professional, and that is ARC on the top of the crystal and the bulky non-tapering bracelet that feels kind of chunky. So with this release, there is no top applied ARC on this now bubble-shaped sapphire crystal, and there is no bulky non-tapering bracelet option. This is only available on tapering mesh, NATO, and rubber straps. So Omega has definitely addressed those two common criticisms. This also has a no-date execution, which I think brings a little bit more balance to the dial. It's visually strong. I like that. And I love this full loomed bezel insert. I think that looks phenomenal in low light conditions. Now, a couple things to note with this release. According to Omega's website, this is 0.2 millimeters shorter in the lug to lug dimension and 0.3 millimeters taller in overall height. So I don't know if that height, I'm assuming the height is just the inclusion of this bubble-shaped sapphire crystal, but I don't know if Omega has made changes to the case outside of the lug-to-lug dimension, like if they've changed where the spring bars are attached. So I don't know if that awesome, thick, chunky, non-tapering 5-link bracelet from the current generation Seamaster would fit on this old school aluminum bezel, tiny black wave dial version. So if any of you watching have both a current gen Seamaster and this new release, and you could swap the bracelet over, I'd be very interested to hear if that's possible. So please shout it out in the comment section. Now, this version weighs about 40 grams less on the mesh when you compare it to the non-tapering bracelet of the standard Seamaster Professional. And that weight shaving, I think that's going to be a big deal to a lot of watch collectors that feel like this 42 millimeter diver is just a little bit too dominant. This takes some weight off. This has the tapering bracelet or the mesh. And I think, again, that's going to be a big deal to a lot of watch collectors. Now, this also does not have a quick adjustment like the standard version does with the bracelet option. There is also no color accent found on the dial. With the standard Seamaster, you get a little red on the dial. This one is just simple steel, black aluminum, and white loom in addition to white printing. And I think that looks fantastic personally. I'm glad there's no extra color here found on the dial. Now, what about drawbacks to this new update? I've thought of 3 different ones. One, and this is the biggest deal for me, This has bad crystal reflections now. Because Omega took off that top ARC, we definitely took a big step backward in this aspect. So I don't think it's a deal breaker, but it's very disappointing from my point of view. Number 2, the clasp is very tall, and that's just the nature of having thick Milanese mesh and the design of how it connects together. So it's a very bulky clasp, and I want you to be aware of that. It's still finished very well. It's still, perfectly functional, but it is tall, and there is no quick adjustment system. And lastly, this cost $600 more at retail than a standard Seamaster, and I never like paying more for a very comparable product. Now let's end with a few different questions. 1, is this release better than the less expensive standard Seamaster Professional? Well, I like it more, but is it better? Probably not, just from a spec standpoint. The standard version has more scratch resistance with ceramic. It has a quick adjustment system in the bracelet. It has better ARC. It's less expensive. The only thing that I think is undisputedly better about this updated version is the fact that it has a full loomed bezel insert. Everything else, I think, probably goes to the standard version or comes down to personal preference. Now, the next question, is this better than a less expensive Black Bay monochrome? Is the Tudor the better buy? Well, from my own experience, I like this one more than the monochrome, just coming down to the size and, more importantly, how interesting it feels. The monochrome is fantastic, but it's very safe. It's as safe as it gets. And over time, I think that's a little bit boring personally. This one, it's not boring. It has the wave dial. It has the mesh. It has the loom bezel insert. So yes, it's still muted and versatile. It's still conservative, but it's also exciting at the same time. So speaking for myself, I'd rather spend a little bit more for this Omega than spend a little bit less and get arguably a better or on par Tudor. So for me, it's more about the feel. It's not about the sum of the specs. Now, last question, this Seamaster or a Submariner? I think you have to mention the availability. If you went to a Rolex authorized dealer, you're not coming home with a Submariner. You might have to wait a year or more before you're allowed to buy one at retail price. I do anticipate the Seamaster to be hard to get initially, to be sold out at various authorized dealers. But I think over time, it will be a lot more available than a Rolex Submariner. And that's an important thing to take into account. I will say, when you're just looking at the finishing, the movement, the specs, the tactile feel, the clasp, all of that stuff, the Submariner is the nicer watch, but it's also the far more expensive watch. So I don't think it's a fair comparison. This is what I would have to say. If you have the means to buy both, whether it's at the same time or one before the other, I recommend buying both at some point because they're different enough to where I would want both in the same collection. You could wear the Seamaster on one day and love it, and then wear the Sub on the next day and love that. They're different enough to where I say the ideal answer is both. Now, I'll end with this one point. This is my personal wish list for the ultimate Omega Seamaster Professional. I would want this watch, but with that gorgeous electric blue wave dial. I so hope that Omega reissues that watch. That is one of the most exciting and dynamic dials that they've ever done on a dive watch. So I would love to see the old school electric blue released and ideally paired with an 8900 coaxial movement, so I could have the time zone jumping hours feature and definitely top applied ARC for myself. That would be the ideal. I hope it happens at some point. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about this updated black dial, black bezeled, loom bezeled Seamaster on the tapering mesh. I think it's an exciting release. I could definitely see myself buying this and enjoying this in my collection, but let me know your thoughts about this new release. And again, if you're shopping Omega, definitely check out Exquisite Timepieces. I've linked them below. Ask me any questions, like this video if you appreciated it or got something from it, And if you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe. That greatly helps me out, and I appreciate it. Thank you.